Welcome to the OTH MMA Podcast. It is our second or third episode, not exactly sure at this point, but we are here for UFC 273, Alex Volkanovski versus the Korean Zombie. I'm joined by my buddy, Jamie Frodo. Jamie, how you doing?
How's it going, Tom? Going great. Just finished watching the press conference, and man, if I wasn't excited like before now, I move the fights to today, man. Just get it over with. I cannot wait. I'm so excited for this card. It for me so far, card of the year. I don't know if many people would dispute that. So.
It's definitely shaping up to have a lot of great fights on it. I mean, I found it particularly interesting that John Anik was announcing the press conference. I think Alexander Volkanovski's shirt was of particular note. But I was just really happy to see a basically full stage, the main card up there with everybody talking. I think that's probably the first time we've had more than, two fights on there and maybe since COVID.
Yeah, I think the biggest one we've had since COVID was actually, don't quote me on this, 263 in Phoenix that had Izzy, Vittori, Brandon Moreno, and Figgy, and Diaz and Edward had all three of them on. But yeah, no, this is definitely the biggest dias since COVID. I actually have a little bit of a theory on why my boy John Anik was hosting the press conference. John Jones is in Vegas at the minute, per his Instagram. He was eating at Fogo de Chao, where I actually had when I was at 272. And I saw that on his Instagram. I was like, oh, so that's what's going on. And based on listening to some of Shale stuff, it's it's looking like maybe John Jones and Stipe for International Fight Week, because apparently Kamaru has had issues with his hand surgery and recovering from it. So that's what I've been hearing about why Dana is late to Jacksonville.
Interesting.
But obviously
That's
that's speculation, so don't quote me on that.
Well, hey, listen, that would make a lot of sense. And at this point, and especially with John Jones over the last few years, we don't get any direct communication. So it leaves us to do nothing but speculate. So, speaking of Kamaru Usman, he has been helping Gilbert Burns get ready for Khamzat Chimaev. Now,
Yeah.
personally, I would look at that and go, okay, champion helping someone in his weight class prepare for another opponent. Maybe hats off to him and his confidence, letting a guy he previously beat up and potentially could see in the future, help him get better. But when you take into account Khamzat Chimaev, his unparalleled start to the UFC, and really the fact that, and I think it's pretty transparent, that Kamaru is probably helping Gilbert Burns get ready for Khamzat Chimaev so Kamaru Usman doesn't have to face Khamzat Chimaev. What do you think about that?
Yeah, so I've seen this rhetoric on Twitter and stuff, kind of all day, and man, it's it's convincing. Like you look at how dominant Kamaru has been over everyone he's fought over the last couple of years. He's finished Burns, he finished Jorge, he kind of finished Colby, I guess, in the first one. Depending on how you feel about that stoppage. But he's been finishing fights. He's been an exciting champion. Now he's helping a rival over a newcomer who has one win in the top 15. It. I don't want to say the writing's on the wall, but I'm a big believer that if anybody dethrones Kamaru, it's going to be Khamzat, and I'm actually so confident in saying that I think that if Khamzat does finish uh, Burns within like 90 seconds, like I'm predicting that he does, he'll open as the favorite against Kamaru?
I think if Khamzat wins at all and is as even if it's close, which I don't think it will be, and I don't think anybody has it being close. I think Khamzat gets the next title shot because here's the reality of the situation. This is a business, right? And it's all
Mhm.
about generating pay-per-view numbers and generating, viewership and marketing and all of the things that bring the dollars. And who brings the dollars more right now than Khamzat Chimaev? Conor McGregor. But that's really it. It's a short list. I mean, I was looking at it yesterday, and they put up fighter interviews, one for each person. That you have your Gilbert Burns, you have your Volkanovski, you have all of these. They get posted at the exact same time to the UFC YouTube page. Everyone was hovering between 50 and 150,000 views. Khamzat was up near 700,000, 7-1 more popular than anyone else on the card. And we have essentially 3 champions, and he's more popular than all of them.
Yeah, that's a crazy stat. I saw something similar actually on Michael Bisping's YouTube channel. It was a poll that was done, 700-800 voters, and the ratios were basically the same. It was like 10% Volkanovski Zombie, 10% Aljo Jan, and the rest was like, oh yeah, I'm most excited for Gilbert Burns and Khamzat. And man, I understand why. I wasn't really on the Khamzat hype train until I saw what it did to GM3, and I was like, oh shit, Alex Gustafsson's right. This guy is for real. If you haven't looked up his backstory, go and look at it. He's like the Russian Francis Ngannou. The stuff that he's gone through is crazy. And so here's the thing, right? About the next title shot. I agree. I think Kamaru has to fight Leon first. I think from a business standpoint, it makes the most sense because the last person, obviously, to beat Leon was Kamaru. And, Kamaru's starting to pull pay-per-view numbers. Give Kamaru this last one fight against somebody that he, has a fairly decent chance of beating. I think he's a 2-1 favorite in that currently. And then let him see what Khamzat does. That's my opinion. But I do
So,
definitely think Khamzat's next after Leon.
so you are 100% of the mindset that Khamzat comes out there and he annihilates Gilbert Burns. And listen, that fight's not done yet. The Usman Leon Edwards fight. That fight is not done. It hasn't been made. And I'm
Yeah.
telling you, I think Leon has a history of being passed over for fights, for competition, for championship. Like he's just he's constantly forgotten. I think he couldn't get a fight with anybody throughout the entire pandemic. First fight he gets back, he puts Bilal Muhammad in the eye. And what really irritated me about Leon Edwards in that specific fight is because afterwards he's like, yeah, well, I was winning the first round, so we knew where that was going to go. As if we haven't ever seen somebody win a round and then lose the next round. Like, dude, that is not math that you can even,
Or lose the
stand.
next 4, especially with Bilal Muhammad. Like,
Absolutely.
Bilal, I genuinely think did better against Wonder Boy than Burns did. It over, the course of a 5-round fight. The guy's cardio is crazy, and people like to clown on Bilal. I like the guy. I think he's funny, and he's not in title contention yet, but he's on a good streak. But as far as predictions for Burns and Khamzat, I've got this number floating in my head, 92 seconds all week long. And I think that's about how long it takes Khamzat to put Burns out of there, whether it's from a knockout or by submission. Bet both of them in the first.
Yeah, I see this one going by way of ground and pound TKO somewhere in the first round. I think when you saw that towel video, it was really our first time seeing these guys right next to each other. And you could really see that Khamzat is a whole head taller. I think he's going to have a 4.5-inch reach advantage. This is a guy who out-wrestled Jack Hermanson,
Yes.
in a pure grappling match. And then you allow him to unleash his ground and pound. And what we saw, GM3 has been on a streak of his own following this Khamzat loss. So it's not like GM3 is a scrub by any means. And Khamzat came in there and gave him one right hand and put him down. It's not even like his wins. Li Xingliang, the leech, is no schlub. And he went in there, and I think he might have got punched once, kind of while he was choking out Li Xingliang. This is a guy who, it's not like he's had the boxing type of upbringing where he's fighting 0-1, 1-1, 0-2 type guys. He is fighting the best of the best, and he is giving out some of the best interviews, right? We were talking about it. He is the number 2 draw in the entire UFC. He's their golden boy, and they really need to get the most out of him while they have him on, I guess, a relatively cheap contract right here. But I just don't see how Gilbert Burns gets this done. This is a guy, at the press conference, he's on his phone playing solitaire. This is a guy who is much bigger than Gilbert Burns. Gilbert Burns is a 155er. Khamzat can reliably stand and bang with the 85ers, maybe even has 205 type power. I don't see an area where Gilbert Burns is better than Khamzat Chimaev. Maybe purely jiu-jitsu, but the whole thought process behind jiu-jitsu and the mentality that was bred, that made it, that the Gracies kind of turned it into, was that an unskilled guy or a skilled smaller guy can beat an unskilled bigger guy. Well, what about when you have a even more skilled bigger guy against a skilled jiu-jitsu guy? And Gilbert Burns has it. Who has he submitted at 70? Nobody. He's only submitted 2 people at 55, and he has all these Brazilian jiu-jitsu accolades. I'm not convinced that is going to be enough for him to overpower Khamzat Chimaev, especially considering that Khamzat Chimaev comes out with such relaxed and calm energy. Like we were talking about it. I know you didn't want to touch Ian Gary, and I'm sorry if I'm jinxing it. I'm knocking on wood for you, even though I'm picking Darian Weeks. Knocking on wood for you. But Ian Gary is coming out with this energy that almost seems a little bit forced. It seems like he's trying to convince other people that he's the man. Khamzat ain't doing any convincing of anybody because he knows, and it's all about showing other people, I killed them all! That is his trademark thing, right? So I'm excited to see him go out there. I'm excited to see him put on a show and really have that upper echelon caliber talent with the name, and I really think he ragdolls him. I don't he's at the press conference playing freaking blackjack on his phone. He doesn't care. He's here to come and smash. And I think he's going to do it. And I think we're going to be I think we're going to legitimately, after Saturday night, after that third fight, which if the card starts at 10, this is probably going to start at 10:45, this fight. It'll be over by 10:47. I think we are legitimately going to say Khabib who.
Yeah, 100%. I'm actually really glad you brought up the 205ers because there's kind of 2 comparisons to make in there. The first one is that allegedly I saw leaked DM to Yuri Prohaska earlier today, and allegedly somehow Khamzat almost broke his rib during sparring. That sounds bonkers whenever you think about Reyes Prohaska. Dominic Reyes has some of the heaviest hands at 205. But Khamzat's the one that sent Yuri to the hospital. That scares me about Khamzat. And the second comparison to the 205ers is Paul Craig. Obviously, really skilled jiu-jitsu guy. Has legs like tree trunks. Gilbert Burns is a beefcake. Is he going to be able to slap a leg into a triangle that quickly and with that much force on Khamzat? I don't think so. I really don't think so.
Well, I think it also just boils down to the fact that Khamzat is going to be, Gilbert Burns can be a brick shithouse all he wants. He's 5'10" against a 6'2", and he's gonna have a 4.5-inch reach disadvantage. He's probably gonna have at least 10 or 15 pounds of a muscle disadvantage in the cage, skill wise, grappling. Even if he's at the same level, the weight puts Khamzat over the edge. And in terms of power in his hands, I think Khamzat putting GM3 down is all you need to see to go, okay, well, advantage Khamzat. And then here's the other thing, and the final thing here is, I wasn't totally thrilled with watching Gilbert Burns training. And I think if he was training for anyone else, we go, wow, he's training like a madman. But the mystique behind Khamzat and his training, and Darren Till and everybody, Sean Strickland, even Jack Hermanson, the list goes on and on of top level guys, basically outside, almost exclusively outside of his weight class, looking at Khamzat and be like, yo, that guy's on a different level. That guy's a crazy person. I don't see how Gil Burns wins this. And that's coming from a guy who likes Gil Burns. I like everything about him. I think he's a nice guy and all of that. But I just don't see the track record that's going to even compare to what Khamzat's done. So with that being said, I think we beat a dead horse. I think we're both expecting Khamzat to come out there and kick ass and win inside the first round. Now, here's something interesting. I had just rewatched right before this the Aljamain Sterling Petr Yan fight, and it kind of swayed me. I think I'm going with Aljamain Sterling. What do you think?
Bro, right. I'm so glad you buried the lead on that. I have a very, very similar feeling about it. I was very drunk the first time I watched that fight. The second time I watched it, I was like, holy shit. Aljo won arguably the first rounds, depending on how heavily you weigh the knockdown in the first. It was a pretty solid hit. Aljo was. I saw somebody else breaking it down, and I would tend to agree with it that Aljo wasn't technically outstriking Petr in the first couple of rounds. He was just outworking him, and that's why he won. But this is Aljo we're talking about. This is his game. He throws all these weird, unorthodox, swinging shit to get in close and then wrap you up, and he does the exact same thing. He gets on your back, he gets a body triangle, he just weighs on you, pulls you to the ground, flattens you out, sinks in the hook, hits you with some ground and pound to, make you think about the ground and pound, and then he snatches in the rear naked, and it's exactly what he did to Corey Sandhagen. He looks absolutely shredded. He posted a TikTok this morning. I replied to him on Twitter, said, Jesus, champ, looks like a rough 24 hours. How are you feeling about it? He said, yeah, it's going to be rough. And, he seemed a little stiff at the press conference, but, that's never a great identifier. But, if he's looking stiff a day out from weigh-ins, that doesn't fill me with confidence. But if he's coming in there at 170, 175 pounds, Petr Yan doesn't cut a whole lot of weight as far as I'm aware. I'm rolling with Aljo by sub early. I think if it makes it out of the second round, I think we start having a very different conversation. But then, I've heard the rhetoric that maybe because Petr Yan's been in there with Aljo before, he gets started faster, which we haven't seen much from Petr Yan in the past. So what do you think, Tom?
Yeah, so I agree and I disagree. I'm not as concerned with him looking a little stiff a week out. I mean, we see plenty of guys cut a ton of weight and then come in and be ready to go. So I'm not as concerned. What I hope and expect to see, and here's my whole kind of thought process, because it's more than just, the stylistic matchup. I think when you're trying to pick a fight and you're trying to, figure out who's going to win and who has the advantage and what's going to go down, I think everything matters because, these guys, they're people, right? So, your mentality is one of the biggest things that go into it. And right now, I think that Petr Yan is a little bit overconfident. He's coming in there without a corner. He may be by himself. Hashtag Mike Perry. You know, I think that Yan is doing a lot of confident talking. Now, here's the thing. Jan's really never like lost. He lost to Aljo, and then he had a split decision where he like headbutted the guy and lost a point because of it. So like he hasn't lost. But here's the thing about that last fight. Aljo came out, had a ton of energy, and had an adrenaline dump. It was his first shot at a title. He was on a crazy streak. And when I went back and I watched that knee again, he really didn't baby it too much. You know, I think the way he handled that knee in the octagon was fine. I had no problem with that. It was the after things, and he starts taking pictures with the belt. Like, listen, if you were going to get the belt around your waist and then throw it on the ground, then don't be proud you have it later that night. If you have a concussion and they have to hold you up, you shouldn't be drinking alcohol later that night. So I have a problem with his continuity of his entire story. I think he changed it up a little bit. But regardless, coming into this fight, I love Merab Dvalishvili, you know, and I love that he's training with Al Iaquinta, you know. I think, and Ray Longo, well, of course, Ray Longo, it's his gym, right? But I think Aljo was really going to learn from that last fight where he is going to be a little bit more calm in there. I think we're already seeing him be a little bit more calm on fight week. And I think we're not seeing Yan kind of be his stereotypical self. He's talking a lot of shit. And, you know, if I see him, see team on site, not Saturday, now. Like, I'm a little bit concerned for the overconfidence of Petr Yan. I think he's going to go in there, and I think he thinks he's going to take Aljo's head off. And I wonder if he really has forgotten the guy that he's going up against. I know a lot of us have because of the year layoff and what's surrounding Aljo as, you know, kind of an asshole. But that's, again, his kind of his thing. He's kind of like the 35-pound Colby Covington. You know, in that regard, that he just makes everybody hate him, and that's his shtick. So I think he's going to go in there a little bit more calm this time. One of the judges had him winning. The other two had him down a round. I think if he had a lot more energy, the volume was actually going to, you know, if you keep Yan on his back foot, it's actually we haven't seen Yan have to fight moving backwards for a long period of time here. So I think that potentially is an aspect that we could see Aljo go for. We saw Aljo, Yan keeps his hands very high, right? So I think we see Aljo go to the body a little bit, dig on that front leg of Petr Yan. I think Aljo is a lot more of a weird guy, right? He's throwing from all different angles. That's why they call him the Funk Master. And on the ground, I think Yan is very technically sound. So I don't see a submission happening, but I could see Aljo getting a decent amount of control time. I could see Aljo managing his pace, but also putting it on Yan and being ahead on the volume numbers. So for all of those reasons, I think we actually get an Aljamain Sterling by decision because he does a lot better with the stamina management this go round. And here's the other thing, and the last thing I'll say, he is in phenomenal shape. Not that we've ever seen Aljo in bad shape. He's in phenomenal shape. And the neck thing, he said, like, I don't have a problem with him getting neck surgery. I have a problem with the way he went about it. But he got neck surgery because, listen, if I'm the champion and I have to defend my belt, well, do I want to defend it with a bum neck? No, I want to defend it at my 100% best. So I don't fault him for that in the slightest. I wish he went about it a different way, but, you know, that's his marketing play. And we're talking about him and people hate him. And, you know, at the end of the day, there's no such thing as bad press unless you're John Jones. So, you know, I really think we go out there and we see an Aljamain Sterling that's a little bit more calm, that has some of the best stamina that we've seen in a long time because he doesn't have the neck problem. He's able to train properly. He had mentioned that that's an issue with him in training. So I think we're going to probably see one of the best versions of Aljamain Sterling. I would say that Ray Longo camp is very – it's not going to be for everybody. The Northeast of the United States is a very specific type of person. I'm being one of them. And I think that Aljamain Sterling, Ray Longo, especially Al Iaquinta, they all fit into that really well. So I'm really excited to see Aljo here. And in the last, say, 3 hours or so, I'm starting to feel pretty confident in Aljo. Now, maybe this will age like a little like hot milk. But at the end of the day, I kind of want to see Aljo take this, and I think he's got a really good shot here. And I know Jan is, like minus 350, minus 400. I'm taking Aljo.
No, absolutely. You have to touch on two of the things that kind of have made me sway in Aljo's favor. The first one obviously is the fact that Aljo has a lot more to learn from this first fight than Petr Yan does. Which whenever you lose a fight, that's your number one goal, is to learn from your mistakes. And Petr Yan did what he always does. He comes out, keeps his guard up, keeps his shell high, and just strikes. And he saw the opportunity for the takedowns. Those gorgeous trips. And he took his opportunities, but didn't want to go near the ground with Aljo. So he kind of exposed a little bit of his arsenal there with those trips. You can be absolutely assured Aljo's going to be aware of that, looking out for it. And the second thing is, Aljo went into that fight with a bum neck, as you said. He also went into every other fight before that with a bum neck. That he apparently sustained the injury in his NCAA days. So he's been fighting with this injury his entire career, and now he's free of it, and he looks better than he ever has. So I'm very excited for it, and I think the implications of it, if either guy wins for the rest of the division, for the 135 division, because it is so deep, are going to be very, very long lasting.
I hear you. With that being said, why don't we move on to the main event? The champion, I think the guy who exudes the championship mentality more than anyone else on the UFC roster right now. I would say maybe Kamaru Usman's up there too, but I mean he's a guy who's also. I mean, all right. Just a quick side note on Kamaru Usman. This is a guy who, after the Masvidal, Colby Covington thing, he was like, oh, these are my kids. It's not how we handle it. Dude, you and Ali Abdelaziz attacked Colby the same way at a freaking, what was it, a Caesars or an MGM buffet with an old lady standing in front of him?
Yeah.
I don't know if you have a leg to stand on, and I know you don't because your knees are terrible, Kamaru. That's my rant on him for the time being. I think I think Alex Volkanovski is probably, right now one of the guys that, if I had a kid, I would say, hey, if you want to be a champion, that's what you want to be like. He's a guy who's been trying to fight. He wanted to fight in December. He wanted to fight in January. He wanted to fight in February. Once the fight with Max Holloway fell out, they offered it in March to the Korean Zombie. The Korean Zombie said, no, I'm injured. I can't go. But I could go 3 weeks later in April. That's concerning. You have the Korean Zombie, who is 35 years old and has made a living off of getting punched in the face and keep coming forward. That's a problem. He has a very, very heavy front leg that we've seen Volkanovski chew up plenty of times before. That's a problem. He has a YouTube channel that gets hundreds of thousands and millions of views. He has a TV show in North Korea. Or South Korea. Sorry, I do not want to make that mistake. He has a TV show over there in South Korea that he is insanely popular. He could retire and ride off into the sunset, no harm, no foul. And then on top of it, do we really think that even though he has one of the 2 or 3 twisters in the UFC, do we really think that the Korean Zombie is a better pure grappler than Brian Ortega? Do we think that he has any submissions that are going to rival Brian Ortega's triangle? He's literally called T-City for a reason. That didn't put Volk away. The absolute tightest guillotine you've ever seen in your life, that didn't put Volk away. What in the world does the Zombie have that Ortega doesn't? I don't see anything. I think Volk is the safest bet, knock on wood. I don't want to jinx it, but I think Volk is probably one of the safest bets. I know he's going to want to go after a finish here, and I think over the aging, beat up, potentially injured Korean Zombie. And here's the other thing too. The lines, they were far apart, but then once more and more people started to learn that the Zombie turned down the fight and then took it 3 weeks later. He's old. He's not going to have another shot. Like, of course he's going to take the fight just to be in a championship fight. I really don't think this is a guy who should be fighting. I mean, his last loss, I don't know if there's better people. I mean, this really should be Max Holloway, right? I mean, at the end of the day, we should be watching Max versus Volk. But, we have the Korean Zombie, and good luck to him. I don't want to see him lose. I just don't see how he wins here. And Volk's hungry.
Yeah, absolutely. I hate to take a shit on TKZ. He's got that unbelievable Yair knockout, which if you don't know what I'm talking about, go and fucking watch it. It's pure fight porn. He had the unfortunate injury related loss to Jose Aldo, has to go away to Korea for his military service to South Korea. Comes back, has the Ortega fight, and I saw somebody earlier today comparing how Ortega did against Zombie to how Volk did against Ortega, and it's like, that MMA math means Volk wipes the floor and beats the brakes clean off Zombie. But Zombie's got like 4 black belts, and Volk's been cracked a couple times. He was cracked by Volk in the first and second round of their rematch, was knocked down. Ortega cracked him, got him, into the guillotine, which I was there live for that fight, and I don't remember much of the rest of the night. I remember Volk being in that guillotine because I remember thinking there's no way he gets out of this. I remember holding my breath along with Volk and thinking, nah, it's over. He's out. And then he pops out of it. And it's the atmosphere and the explosion of the crowd. I can't imagine anything Zombie has unless he gets unbelievably lucky and Volk gets cocky, which is the only way I see Zombie getting a counter right and then, a mounted ground and pound. Other than that, I can't see any routes to victory that Zombie realistically has other than that.
Yeah, I mean, Zombie is coming. Who gets a title shot off a loss and a year layoff?
Yeah,
with an undisclosed injury.
Maybe Conor McGregor, but
Conor McGregor's Conor McGregor, and I guess you can argue that Chancellor Young doesn't have the same draw, but to some lesser degree. I mean, he's probably going to pull in the entire country of South Korea to tune in. So, I mean, that can't be necessarily discounted. And, maybe that into why Volk wanted TKZ. It's like, hey, this is a guy who maybe doesn't pose all of this much of a threat to me and is going to pull numbers, make a good amount of money, can keep the belt and move on. One thing on Volk, and I rewatched that fight with Ortega, and what was that? The third round where all that happened, right? When he's in that guillotine and he's talking about after the fact, where he's thinking about, I'm not letting you take this belt from me and my family. Like, this isn't how it happens. And miraculously, all of a sudden, the grip breaks and he's out, right? And then he gets caught into, what was it? Was it an armbar, or was it the
Brian slapped the triangle over, and it was so tight, and Volk, masterfully, just exactly what you're supposed to do in a triangle. He rolls through it, gets on top, and breaks Brian's grip. It's how to escape a triangle 101, and that's one of the things that I think Volkanovski does so fantastically. It's why he beat Mac. It's why he beat Brian. It's the fundamentals. He's in there. He's popping the jab. He's popping the feints. He's always threatening the takedown. He's so fucking short. he could just reach right down there and just pick your ankle, and he doesn't even have to, go down on one knee. And something I see a lot of people talking about as well, that actually came up in the Jai Herbert and Ilya Topuria fight, is when you put two guys built the way Zombie and Volk are built, or Max and Volk are built, the taller guy, whenever he's got his guard up, has to bring his guard down to see the shorter guy and to see his hands. And it's a well known, boxing thing. Sometimes for the taller guy to adjust that little inch, it exposes your chin. And Volk plays that short guy mentality beautifully. Um, and he's like, people are like, oh, he's got a shorter reach. It's like, no, he doesn't. He's just unbelievably broad shouldered, and it makes his arms short. But he's not. He's like deceptively long. You just don't see it because he's so ripped. Watch it. Watch him at the weigh-ins, and you'll see what I mean.
And that's the other thing you mentioned too. I think he only has like half an inch or maybe a 1 inch reach advantage against TKZ, who may be 2 or 3 inches taller than him. At the end of the day, height doesn't matter really all of that much in MMA. The one thing you could say about that height is, that TKZ historically has done well against that shorter opponent. So I really wouldn't be surprised if, say, early in the fight, we get like Volk to get cracked. I could see that happening. But this is a guy with otherworldly resilience. And back to what I was saying about the Ortega fight, it actually made me emotional going back and watching it when he's saying like when Rogan goes, now the champ's mad. Now, and he's just standing there beating the shit out of Ortega. He's like, you ain't taking this from me. This is my family's. Like, that made me, it almost gets emotional because you feel that because, you watched it and then you hear his, what he was thinking when he's going through it. And then you watch it again. You're like, damn, that's some inspirational shit. That's why he's the champion, because he doesn't give up. And champions, they get knocked down and then they come right back and they come back harder. And that's why I say he is a perfect example of what you want your champion to be.
Yeah, so, 100%. Just on that, think about Alex Volkanovski's last 23 rounds in MMA. 10 rounds with Max Holloway, 5 rounds with Brian Ortega, 5 rounds with Jose Aldo, and a round and a half with Chad Mendes, finishing him faster than Connor did. Like, that's mental. You want to talk about strength of schedule? Talk about Alex Volkanovski.
Absolutely. You took the words right out of my mouth. This is a guy that his schedule can't be discounted. His skill set is phenomenal across the board. He doesn't have a weakness. And I think he's in his prime now. He is chasing something bigger than himself. He's chasing all-time greatness legacy. He's chasing pound for pound #1. I think there's a really good case to be had that Volk deserves to be the #1 pound for pound fighter right now. And I think a good performance over TKZ, and if he gets that finish, which I think this is tailor-made for him to do, you have an aging TKZ, potentially injured, has been knocked out before, heavy on the front leg, keeps his chin out there. I think Volk's going to go in there. He's going to chew up that front leg. TKZ's not going to be able to get out of the way. He's going to maybe shoot hard, but he's not going to have the explosivity because his legs aren't there. Volk's going to push him right off. I think Volk is going to maybe he drops the first round, but I think we could potentially see 4-1 if it goes to decision, or I think we could potentially see a Volk finish in the 3rd or 4th. I really do.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. I think, I think the -700 favorite on Volk is maybe like whenever you look at Zombie's credentials, right? You think maybe it's a little off. It should be -10,000, man. It really should. Like the chances of Zombie's chances are minuscule. Like you think about it this way, right? To paraphrase Max Holloway, Volk's beat 2 champs, and he's beat one of them twice. uh Zombies only
At his
beat
own game, at Max Holloway's own game. It's not like he
at
took him down.
Mexican
He's like, "You want to
like
box? Let's box."
exactly. It's hard for me to see a real route to Zombie outside of just any puncher's chance. I completely agree. I think it's absolutely heretical that there's anybody really above Volkanov. He's proven he's got the durability, he's got the cardio, he's got the boxing, he's got the stand up. His leg kicks are, who's better leg kicks than Volk other than maybe Gaethje and Dustin Poirier and Izzy Adesanya. Realistically, other than and John Jones, other than them, who's better leg kicks than Volk? If Max can't put him out on the feet, what's Zombie gonna do? If Ortega can't submit him on the ground with his two best submissions, a Twister's not gonna do anything. Like, I'm sorry. I
Yeah.
love Zombie, a Twister's not gonna do anything, man.
So, as we get to the end of our show here, Jamie, give me a parlay for the last 3 fights. Get as specific or as general as you want.
Okay, I've laid this actually part of it earlier. Khamzat in the first, easily. I would be absolutely shocked if it makes it past 92 seconds. I've had that number in my head all week long, and I can't explain it any other way. Aljo by sub, the odds are just too good to pass up. If we're doing a three main event fight parlay, fucking go out there. And I'm gonna get spicy. I'm gonna say Volk in the fourth by grounded pound TKO.
Interesting. We're going to keep that up there for you. Me personally, I like Hamzat by TKO ground and pound in the first. I like Aljo by decision. And I like that pick, Volk by TKO. We're going to get specific in the fourth. I think I'll say in the third, fourth, or fifth. So
Absolutely, I'd agree that probably is a more likely to hit. Aljo, I think if you're putting him in a parlay, just put a money line. The odds are already ridiculous. Unless you've really got a feeling on him by finish. So, I actually one last question. Speaking of Alex Volkanovski, who do you think's next for him? He said he wants 3 fights this year, 2 more after this. Surely one of them's Max. The other one, I think he should fight Connor, man.
okay.
I
At what weight?
at 170. I'm not.
Oh,
Here's the thing, right? Volk weighs what?
oh.
Volk weighs 170 at least, right? We can agree on that. Like his walk around weight's 170. Volk not
I
having
mean,
to
let's
cut
think about
weight.
145. How much do we think he honestly cuts? 15 to 20 pounds, right? So that puts him at 65.
I'd
Outside
say
175, maybe 180.
yeah, yeah, right. And Connor's, more or less the same. Volk's a massive, massive featherweight. I think at 170, Connor's not making 155 again. He's too big. You can see his
He doesn't
physiology.
want to.
Yeah, and why the fuck would he? It makes no sense whatsoever for him to do it. Plus he's got a 5-pound titanium rod in his shin, right? So you want Connor to kill himself to make effectively 150? No, no. Well, what are you talking about?
Titanium
170.
skin bone, as he likes to say.
Yeah, exactly, right. Connor and Volk at 170, International Fight Week. There's no belts, there's no nothing. It's just two blokes that want to go out there and beat the bejesus out of each other. I think it's the best fight you can make for International Fight Week.
You make a very compelling argument, and part of that is backed up by the fact that Volkanovski, once he knocks off Chan Sung Jung, and then he fights Max again, should he beat both of those guys? I mean, there's no one else in the division. Who are you going to give him? Calvin Kattar?
Exactly. I mean, the limiting factor in people that Volk can fight is Max, because he beat Yair, he's beat Ortega better than Volk did. Although you want to be real about it, Volk probably did a better job, just not as good a job reffing from her being in that second one. Right? If Max keeps beating the number 2 guy, then what's left? It's kind of the same situation that Kamaru's facing. He doesn't want to fight Izzy at 185. He's beaten the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 guys at welterweight, either on his way up or at the top. Doesn't want to fight Izzy. No other fight at 185 would make any sense.
There's Khamzat, and he's going to run from Khamzat. But he's not going to – he's nowhere to run. He has nowhere to run. He's going to – you know what's going to happen? Here's my prediction. Sorry to cut you off. Here's my prediction. Khamzat's going to beat the shit out of Gilbert Burns. Kamaru Usman is going to beat Leon Edwards. Kamaru Usman is going to take on Conor McGregor so he doesn't have to take on Khamzat Chimaev.
And then retire.
What was that?
And then retire.
Well, I was going to say Khamzat Chimaev in the meantime is going to go up to 85. He's going to beat the shit out of somebody up at 85. And then what happens with our guy Volkanovski? Well, I think we may see him fight whoever's holding the belt at 55.
That is also something I'd love to see. I think Volk and Charles Oliveira is an unbelievable stylistic matchup. I think it plays out a lot similarly in the first to Charles and Chandler. I think, Volk has a very similar build to Chandler and maybe not as explosive, but certainly more technical, and isn't going to, get dropped by the same check left that Chandler did.
I hear you. Well, I think that was a pretty good episode. I think it's time for us to say goodbye to the good folks at home. Everyone, make sure you check us out, Overtime Heroics MMA. Check us out at overtimeheroics.net. You can find our YouTube channel, Overtime Heroics MMA. It's right down there. Follow us on Twitter at OT Heroics MMA. Make sure you give me a follow. Pickin' Fights Tom and Jamie Frodo MMA. Make sure you give him a follow just the same. Thank you guys for checking in with us. We will be back to discuss how UFC 273 went down. Until then, enjoy the fights, everybody.